and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I'm going to start off with some better pressing. I am crafting with the Simon Hurley Spring Magnolias set and I've got some new better press ink colors I wanted to try out, so I've pulled out Garnet and Peridot. And I feel like I'm so spoiled now with the registration better press. I kind of want everything to be built that way because I love that multi-press look of the multiple colors. So I'm just gonna go back to doing this the old-fashioned way by doing some partial inking. So in this set, there's a couple of different configurations of floral sprays. So we've got kind of a longer branch, one that's more of a cluster, and then we have some individual flowers. And what I'm gonna do is ink up the flowers in the garnet color and then ink up the leaves in peridot. But I'm gonna do them as multiple passes. So that's why I've been calling it multi-press. I don't know if that's the official terminology for what I'm doing, but that's what I'm doing, and all I'm using to mask with is just some copy paper. I'm gonna put the copy paper over the at this stage over the leaves so that I don't get any of that lovely pink color into the leaves, or as little of it as possible. No, it's so hard to do this with even a small ink cube like the Better Press ink cubes. It's really hard to do it precisely, which is why the registration Better Press plates are just so awesome. But hard does not mean impossible. So with the second pass, I'm going to go in and I'm going to ink up just the leaves with some peridot. If you are actually a little bit worried about potentially having some ghosting, what I would recommend is actually clean your Better Press plates in between each pass you do, because there's a bit of a potential for your paper to shift or for something to happen where when you run this through the second time, it might not actually line up 100%. And if there's still ink in that first layer or that first pressing, you might get a ghosted image. I didn't have that problem, but if you want to be cautious and avoid it altogether, then just clean your plates in between. I don't normally color in my Better Press designs, but I thought these magnolias are just so pretty and coloring them would be pretty simple to do. So I've smushed out some ink and I'm using the Spellbinders water brush to color it in. And I'm only using the one color ink, but I am modulating how much water I add to the ink to get lighter pink in some areas and a more intense saturated pink in where the areas where I want a little bit more shadow. As I go along and do this, I want to mention that my video today is part of the monthly Oh So Inspired collaboration that Call Me Crafty L here on YouTube organizes each month. And as a team, we've selected a card by Rochelle Block, and each of us will be creating a project that has been inspired by Rochelle's original card. I'll bring her card up on screen in a moment when I'm a little bit closer to actually putting my card together. That way you can kind of see her card and how it has inspired mine. But she made a split window card, which I believe was made popular. I don't know for certain if it was originated in terms of the design by Jennifer McGuire, but I certainly know that she definitely made it hugely popular when she did a video on it. And it's been a while since I've made one of these, so I thought that I would also make a split window card today. I'm making mine a little bit differently, and as with all things really, there's so many different ways to make the same card. So whatever approach works best for you, definitely do what works for you, but I'll show you how I approached mine. To start though, I'm using the coordinated dies to cut out each of these floral sprays that I've colored in. As well, this set has 3 sentiments that you can better press out, and I did do that off screen. So I've pressed out Happy Mother's Day and the sentiment I love you. The third one is so grateful for you. Each of those also has a coordinating die to cut them out, which I used for my card today as well. So once I have all of my elements, then I'm going to turn my attention to how to create this split window card. A split window card is essentially a bookfold card where you score about an inch in from the folded edge of your card, and you want to score and fold and glue down that 1 inch sort of panel on that left edge. And so I've drawn my line where I will ultimately score and fold. And your book fold is as simple as that. You can score, you can make that line wherever you'd like, and then what you would do is fold that left portion down, or glue that left portion down, leaving only a part of your card front to open. A split window card takes that to the next level by cutting an aperture through that fold. And that way, when you open your card, it will peek through to the inside of the card, and so when you open the card, it will be a full reveal. Now, instead of cutting this circle aperture out completely, what I'm going to do is a partial die cut. So I'm going to line up my top plate so that it's along that pencil line that I drew, and I'm only going to cut the right edge. So anything that's not covered by the top plate will not be cut through. And that gives me this nice circular edge, but it's still attached on the left side. Then I am going to use the coordinating die that matches the floral spray that I want to frame this left edge of my aperture. And I'm going to do another partial die cut. The only reason why I'm doing it this way, because certainly you could cut the circle out completely, and because I'm gluing on a separate layer anyways, I could just glue this down directly to the inside of my card later. But the reason why I'm choosing to do the partial cut, and I'm going to do this exactly the same way as I did the circle, I'm going to line up the top cutting plate against that pencil line that I drew. And the result will be that I'll have this portion connected to the left, and I can cut away the aperture, the circle. So I'm only cutting along the pencil line, but I'm not cutting through the flower. I'm just cutting the circle away. And so that gives you something a little bit like this. And the reason why I want to do this is so that as much as possible, I'm not introducing a lot of different layers of paper. Everything's going to be more or less kind of almost flush and, close to the same number of layers underneath. And I feel like that gives me a little bit of a nicer finish, especially since I tend to burnish really aggressively. So if you have different, number of layers of paper underneath, you might get some crease lines when you burnish the way I burnish. So here's a look at Rochelle's original card, and as you can see, she's got some beautiful florals, some really lovely pattern papers, I believe. And so I'm gonna pick some papers as well, and I have just this bit of scrap actually of a very nice soft pink bokeh effect. On my right panel here, I've got some white card stock that I've cut that same size circle through. And I cut it through a piece of cardstock that is larger than what I need. And you can see I just traced around the edges after lining up the aperture, the circle cutaway. And that way I can cut this exactly to fit. You could cut something that's exactly the size of your panel and then try to line up the die cut, but I find this a little bit easier to do, so that's why I've approached it that way. And even though this is white, the reason why I have cut an additional panel is because I want to emboss this nice leafy design to add just a little bit of interest, a little bit of texture and pattern to the right hand edge instead of using a pattern paper. Because what I want is for the inside of the card to use this lovely sort of a lime green gingham pattern paper that peeks through. And so that's the fun part of this split window style of card, is that through the aperture, you can get a peek into the inside of the card. And so as I start to get all of my components together, I can start to really assemble everything. So the first step is to glue down that left edge. And at the moment, my flower is not glued down at all on the inside. That was so that I could still slip this green pattern paper behind it. Then I'll glue down my embossed panel on the right edge. And all of these are slightly larger than what they need to be, which I prefer, because then I can just trim away from the edges and have a nice finish. And so now I've got the perfect spot for where my better pressed flower can go. I've got some extra flowers that I'll use to also sort of frame this aperture. And I kind of like the idea of putting this one single flower on the right side just to continue framing the circle, but this will be on the outside of the circle where the larger spray is on the inside. So it kind of adds a little bit of interest, some depth and dimension as well. And for my outside sentiment, I used Happy Mother's Day. And for my inside sentiment, I used I love you. And the one thing I did off camera, so you'll see it in the final photos, is I did add a Love from Lizzie's pinstripe sticker along that left edge of where the fold is. And that, I feel like it kind of cleans up that edge just a little bit. So you'll see that in my final photos if you check me out on Instagram or Facebook. So that's my card today, inspired by Rochelle Block's card. I hope you'll hop along by expanding the description box and clicking over to the playlist where you'll see how my teammates have been inspired by Rochelle's card. Thanks so much for joining me today, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.